I've really hyped this book up for a while. In my previous sketchbook videos, this is one that I've talked about being my favorite, and I haven't actually looked in it since back in the day, so hopefully it lives up to that. I would prefer that it lived up to it. The cover, as you can see, is pretty gross. I cleaned it with some antibacterial wipes, but they've left like a residue on it, so yikes. But that's part of the reason why I'm doing this. I want to be able to cleanse myself of these decade-old sketchbooks and keep like a visual record of it also. I guess tip-axed some text here. It's very 2000s of me. And I think this was my friend Rob's. Got like a Last of Us sticker for his PlayStation controller, and I just took the outline. This is me starting to put stickers on my sketchbooks, I guess. Let's get into it. Oh wow, the spine. Okay. First off, I have a recipe here for a microwave chocolate mug brownie, if anybody wants it. Drawing-wise, opening on Michael Fassbender is very me, very 2000s me especially. There's probably going to be a lot of him in this book. If you've watched any of my other videos, you know that I was in the More fandom for a while, and he was a massively popular face claim for Sebastian Morin, who I had like an RP blog for. I cosplayed him, I drew a bunch of stuff. I was in the thick, and obviously this is another portrait of him. This is gonna be a thing as well. The pages started to fall out of this, and I was adding in other pages, and it just gets pretty messy, so that'll be consistent. I have a little watercolor here of a magpie and a tiger. Again, if you know, you know. Seems to be like a fine liner situation. This is the start of some research that I was doing for a children's book for university called Paper Tiger, and I was just drawing different versions of things that I could find. There's some like little toys and little kids costumes, and then I also had a tiger onesie, so that's a self-portrait at the time. Very interesting proportions. I was doing some color charts just to decide what kind of vibe I wanted them to be. I think at the point I was here, I was maybe thinking of transitioning depending on the section of the book. Some more tiger studies. Again, very consistent. I love doing a little tiger study. Some skulls and stuff. I think I also painted my face like a tiger at one point for the project. I scribbled out the layout thing and started to do some character designing. The idea was that there would be a timid little kid who had a origami tiger that he would take on adventures, and then he started to imagine himself as like a tiger sort of superhero and would find his bravery and adventure, sense of adventure through that. So this is also, I think, a reference to like Fiona and Keck, probably. And this is the actual layout of the book, and I did make it and bind it. It wasn't very good. I don't think the teachers really liked it, but I liked it, so I mean that's the main thing. Some little concepts for what the superhero version of him would look like. I think I just really settled on liking like this bridge kind of looking like a superhero mask. I thought that was pretty neat. Yeah, tigers are so cool, man. I love them. Some more little studies of tigers, and then I learned how to make an origami tiger. And then I found out that there was a military branch called the Flying Tigers when I was doing research, and I had these little concepts of it in like a folded box. Got Rosso from the Ghibli movie. Yeah, I was just trying to think of like what defined a good tiger and like evil tiger. So like looking at shape language and the expressions that he pulled, all these sharp angles and pointed features, and I wanted to steer away from that. So I was looking at big soft features and lots of curved things. I think this was a jacket that I actually owned at the time, and these were my concepts for the kid. I really like this kid from the La Luna short that Pixar made, and I was taking a lot of influence from that because I just loved that short so much. This was a little magpie study. I think they brought some taxidermied animals into the studio for us to draw, and we just spent some time. I just had some markers that were clearly dying, and it was like a no pencil, just pure observation thing. There's probably a few of those in here. Yeah, got a little bat and some more birds. And taxidermy is like hard, right? Because, you know, especially if you love animals, it's like such an opportunity to be able to be so close to an animal that you normally wouldn't get the chance to have it be so still and so up close and to really study it. But it's also a sad first little beastie, and it was really difficult for me, honestly. I'm a vegetarian. I think I might have been vegan at the time. And yeah, got a little chameleon guy, hedgehogs. I think the studio, like when I said the studio, I mean the illustration course. I think they had some people that they knew in like a museum that dropped them over. I guess a silly little comic. I think I just wore a shirt that I sometimes use for pajamas out in the streets better times. This is a concept for something. I had a friend, I think it was Shakira, and we had been talking on, we were online friends, and we've been talking about like an AU for a village sort of thing, different factions and that, and I was sort of looking at costume designs for one of the factions, and I think this is more or less one of the only things that remains of it. I think there's a Pinterest board, but I really like this. I think this is technically the start of this book, honestly. This might be like the first actual page that wasn't stuck in, but this is just a study of, I think it was under Scott's back from something, I just don't know what. And I really like this though. It's a shame there's so much smudging on it from the pencils, but and just a random eye. I didn't mean for it to work its way into the position. I was just using these red pencils. I have this one, like a Faber-Castell Talise. I'm not sure, but I had a lot of pencils like that, which were really, they were really soft and nice. And then some pro markers, probably. I was really into pro markers at the time. Some more little pencil doodles. This was, there's a Northern Irish children's storybook author who I really love. I'm so horrible at like remembering people's names whenever I have to, but I'll put some of his books up because he's really popular now. I think he was less well known at the time, but I took a huge influence for his works when I was doing my children's storybook module at uni, and I really loved the way he drew characters. They were so beautiful, and the textures he would use in his books were so cool. And I just wanted to do something like that, so I did like a little Sebastian Moran in that style as well, just to sort of see what it looked like. And I got that there's blank pages in this. So this, as it says up here, is from Michelle. She's the little sister of one of my absolute best friends in the whole world, and I promised that I was gonna draw something for her birthday. Again, this was a decade ago, so I actually talked to her about this recently because I knew it was in the sketchbook. But I basically was just taking as many things that I knew that she liked and trying to put them all into one piece. So I don't know if I'll remember all of these. Obviously this is Shrek, and there's like a Sims thing here. And I think this was Jetty from Scrubs. And this was the Star Kid Potter guy, Darren Criss, did from Skins. And that looks like Jack Whitehall. I think there's a little Ratatouille here. There's the Inception guy. Maybe that was supposed to be Michelle. There's a lot going on there. But I actually did like this for what it was. I just never finished it. Oops. This was a sketch for my friend, his sister. This was for, it was like a zombie, more Halloween thing, which I finished digitally. I kind of liked it. I didn't ever finish it, but I got close enough. It was just like supposed to be a Halloween gift. This is life drawing, and this is Sophie, one of the girls I went to university with, just sitting at a piano. It might have actually been a table. I might have improvised the piano because I think this was just in the life drawing studio. But yeah, this is her again. Sometimes the students would be put into a position where they volunteered / had to be the life drawing model for that day. I was usually pretty into it though. This is one of the farms we went to. This is just a brush pen and some watercolor. I spoke before in my last video in Sketchbook 9 about just having like a little Reeves tin and those brush pens that hold water in them. and just using them on the go. So I love these. I really loved drawing animals back then. I stopped at some point and just became absolutely horrible at it, but yeah, the good old days. Some little lambs. There was a farmer at this farm who got so uppity at us because we were all fawning over the lambs, because they're baby lambs, of course. And he was like, don't anthropomorphize them. You know, do any of you even know what that means? Looking at us like dumb art students or whatever. How could we possibly know what that means? I was like, yeah, don't project human characteristics on them, obviously. And he just looked so aghast. He looked so annoyed that somebody had he must have used that line a lot. But yeah, he was basically warning us not to give them names or love them because they were not going to survive very long, I guess, on his horrible little farm. This was a comic for Tumblr. I can't remember what the project was exactly, but it was like a pass the parcel type comic. So I got the last panel of the person before me, and I had to continue the comic, and then I sent this one on to the next person. I don't think they ever did anything, and I don't think it ever finished. It might have literally ended with me, but this was the comic that I made. And I actually used this little section of it as one of my business cards for a long time. Just the reverse side of it, because the colors are really rad. And it's not the best comic in the world, but it's recognizable as them, so that's what matters. I had some more little printouts of work that I did. This was Carlos from Welcome to Night Vale. The only reason I'm proud of this one was literally because I was drawing it while the episode dropped, and I was drawing it while listening to the episode and posted it when I finished. And I got one of those our artist's already finishing things, the episode just came out type messages and notes and stuff on the post, and it just made me really happy. Silly. More Newt, and I think I just invented a puppy for him called Dudley. It was really important to me because I really loved pugs at the time. And this is another printout of an animated comic that I did for one of the traffic announcements, I think, from Welcome to Night Vale. And I'll maybe put that up if I can find it. It was vaguely animated, it wasn't super animated. This was for a zine that we made in university on the theme of work or jobs. And I did a mime, identity through work, I guess. And it says, everyone wears a mask. Mine is just more obvious than yours, as is Ty. Graphic design is my passion, you know. Another animated comic. This is for one of the songs that featured in Welcome to Night Vale at the time. Again, it wasn't super heavily animated, but I was having fun doing little things like this. You know, it was nice. This was a request on Tumblr. This is not a ship that I subscribe to, necessarily, but I do enjoy a challenge, and I wanted to do fun colors, so I did that, and I'm not sorry. This was another thing that I started and never finished, but then I kind of liked how it looked unfinished. Initially, I was going to really render out these blue roses and put lots of little flowers in it, and I think I did a version with some of them, but then it felt really cluttered, and I really liked how simple this was. So I just painted a white tone, an off-white tone. It's Benedict Cumberbatch, of course. I was really deep in my Sherlock phase, as you could tell. This was another digital painting. It was off a photo reference. I just sort of played around with the colors a bit more. John looks really weird, but yeah, it's pretty good. I was really focusing on realism and trying to capture it. But what's really cool, this is something I've tried to come back to now with my art, is focusing most of my rendering attention on the faces, because this is where I want the viewer to look. These are dark colors, so it's not so bad, and the background is fairly dark. But if you actually look at the windows of the buildings behind them, they're very rickety and all over the place and just two colors. But you don't notice it so much because it's background atmosphere, they're moving, and the attention goes to the faces straight away because there's more detail there. It's a really cool little trick. It saves a lot of time, and it actually looks a lot nicer than just trying to fully make everything look super real and super perfect, and then wasting time because the viewer doesn't know where to look unless you're really honing in on the lighting and the values. But I actually have a postcard of this that I keep at my desk. I used it as like a business card for a while, so I would hand that out at the table at cons. It had my details on it. It's Benjamin Linus from Lost. He's one of my absolute favorite characters from my absolute favorite TV show. And it's a really sad moment. In case you haven't seen it, I guess I won't say what the moment is, but it's basically, you can see his heart breaking. It's horrible. But it was another attempt at getting practice at realism, and I was getting really into digital work at the time, so that's sort of, this is like the marker of me falling away from traditional art, I think, because I realized the results that I could get from this and just painting in Photoshop. This is a bit of a weirder one. It was just James Moriarty as a spider and some more graphic shapes and fire and stuff. I mean, technically speaking, it's a good piece, but it's just weird just to have someone's head on a spider. Also, props to Pass Me for being able to stare at a photo reference of a spider for long enough to draw it, because damn, I would not want to do that now. Another printout, Alexander Skarsgård as Eric Northman in True Blood. I was massively into True Blood. I'm mostly impressed by the level of detail I managed to get into this door. So good. I don't even do this level of detail anymore. No. This was my piece for Olio, which was our varsity graduate booklet. Like, everybody would submit a piece to a theme. I did this robot fighting a dragon on a lighthouse. I was a double-page spread, I think, but the digital piece was definitely a lot more successful than the printed version. I still hadn't really fully grasped my DMYK light-dark balance for print. But it was a good learning experience. I showed this before. This is a comic that I did to show the passing of time. So I used seasons, the color palette also changed. There was a clock and a calendar into the different seasons in the flower, living and dying, as this man's wife passed on. It was fairly successful for the topic. I think it was one that people really enjoyed in the class. I've also gone through this in a previous video. It's another comic based on the concept of a cello being shaped like a woman's body, and a woman who had lost her partner could hear her in the music and got to hold her again when she bled. And I didn't fully finish it again, but this is also from another sketchbook. I think I submitted the sketchbook as part of one of my projects, so I was putting in a lot of relevant art, if relevant. But this was a marker piece that I did in a previous sketchbook that I've toured on the channel with some Breaking Bad characters in it. Again, it was a piece I really, really liked. Yeah, it was one of the more successful ones. This, I feel like if there's more, no, there are a few. This was a sequence of images that I did about exploring afterlife concepts, and I should be able to put them on screen. But this girl that I used for it, there's literally some girl that cycled past me when I was in Cheltenham. I just saw her from behind, and she had this like big head of like red curls and this green jacket, and it just stuck in my head, and I used her for this piece. I've never met her. I don't know who she is, but yeah, I guess she made enough of an impact on me then. This is another sequential piece. Something mashed between Lost and Breaking Bad, I guess. So like just really weird fan art. A Welcome to Night Field piece of the man in the tan jacket. It's been a while. So let me see if I can just clear out all of this. This is Thor and Captain America from the Avengers, some marker experiments that I did. You can see like the bleed is like so intense. This paper maybe wasn't the best for it. But I was taking stills from movies and trying to figure out what I liked and the shape language. These were all pieces that I did in the gap between university, summer break or winter break maybe, and then going back for my next year. So we were talking about archetypes TV shows and trying to find examples of them. So I had the Wise Woman as Adele Stackhouse, Loner is Bill Compton, the Child is Jason Stackhouse, Trickster is Eric Northman. And then I did some studies from a movie that I absolutely love. It was a stage play originally. It's The Sunset Limited, and I just love it. I just love that kind of film where it's just one room, a long conversation about theology and science. It's really just really well done. I just thought it was beautiful. So I did a couple of studies of Tommy Lee Jones and Samuel L. Jackson from it. It's not the best, but you know, I caught something maybe. And some more marker studies. Natasha Romanoff. This must have been first Avengers movie. Maybe it just come out. I have John Locke as the Wise Man, Austin as the Anima, and Mystique Beloved. This is from Wolverine Get Mystique. She does the whole cowgirl thing. I'm completely obsessed with these panels, so I had to redraw them. And then we have Wolverine, Beloved Boy, and just a study of his back, I guess. I was trying to be more experimental with colors because I just enjoyed it. I think I always sort of enjoyed it. Sometimes markers really don't allow you to go super hard with experimentation, but I think I only had a couple of colors with markers, which is sometimes just so much better than when you have digital medium and you have every color under the sun. Having a limited color palette really forces you to be experimental and to understand values. And this is Magneto, obviously. Ian McKellen, Sir Ian McKellen, absolutely beloved. Yeah, I would do anything for this man, I think. And Charles as well. I don't think I ever left my X-Men phase, honestly. Storm. And more Mystique. So it starts here, I guess. And this is the interrogation scene where she just fights her way out, but it starts here, and I've tried to storyboard the action sequence. Yeah, I'm just completely obsessed with her. Mystique is baby girl, and specifically Rebecca Romijn's version of her. I never really liked Jennifer Lawrence's version. It just didn't set right with me from the start. I got some John Watson from Sherlock, standard. You can see like the yellow bleed through of the marker on the page as well. Looks like a little halo or something. Sherlock, and Jim Moriarty. This is dated 2012, which is funny because some of these other drawings that were shoved in were 2013, so it must have been between first year and second year. More Benjamin Linus, another pencil study. Again, I told you he was my favorite, so that was going to happen. Book falling apart again. So this is me and my two roommates. I've said here I know I want to do an Adventure Time parody, so I experimented by changing myself and my flatmates into Adventure Time characters using Spectrum Noir markers, modeling them on current characters. Left to right, Charlie is the Earl of Lemongrab, Rob is Finn the Human, and Charlie is Lumpy Space Princess. If you've seen any of my other videos, I talk about a comic called Junkie Dot, and some of the main characters in it were Trouble. At some point in previous books, I decided I would use Joseph Gordon-Levitt as a face claim. So these were some studies of Joseph Gordon-Levitt. I really like some of these. Like this, I think this was like one of my favorite pages for a very long time, but this was for another character called Sin. I just loved names like that. I used Peter Dinklage as a model. So it was really just a great excuse to do some studies of Peter Dinklage. And I think this, even though I didn't finish it, is literally one of my favorite drawings I've ever done. I don't know. Obviously, I was too nervous to finish the rest of the face. I just think the page just looks so good. I really liked it. And then I used Misha Collins for Creep. This is what Creep should look like. This is more like fan casting, I guess. But I remember being told pretty early on that if you had an actual actor or someone you could get a lot of photo references for as a face claim for a comic character, you would always be able to, so even if you're not attempting realism, if you find an expression of theirs and you use it as a reference, you would always have like some markers that would keep it consistent. So that's why I did that, but this was like the style that I like to draw him in. And the reason that I'm starting to draw these characters again for this book is that we were doing some build-in to our final major project, and I love movies so much. And I had decided that I would use this project as an excuse to watch as many movies as I could. So I was doing style studies based on different directors. So I picked like Wes Anderson, for instance, as one of the directors, and I watched all of his work at the time. He has a very, very, very strong style, obviously. It's well known. But I then broke that style down and I had my own comic, like just, I don't know, 2 pages of a comic, and I would redraw, reimagine, rewrite that comic over and over again in these different directors' styles, depending on what those were from my studies. And I was using Creep and Trouble and Sin as those characters from that story. And I think I have another sketchbook somewhere that I used for that, which I have been looking for. It's just a little moleskin, so it's very small, but I know it's somewhere. So I will find it and try and look through it at some point. It has all of those comics in it. Yeah, these are my stylized little Sin sketches, and then Creep and Trouble, and more little sketches. This is, I've yet again forgotten somebody's name, but I'll flash him up on the screen. But there was an artist that I absolutely loved. I followed him on DeviantArt, and he had these amazing characters. I loved his shorthand for style, and a lot of the things he said on his like DeviantArt blog or whatever back then really stuck in my head. He was probably one of the reasons that I decided to pursue art at a university level. And why can't I remember anybody's name whenever I'm recording these? Ooh. But yeah, I think I even have like he made like a playlist on Spotify for drawing, and it was like one of my most listened to playlists for years and years and years. Yeah, this was one of his pieces that I drew into my sketchbook because I really liked his lines and I wanted to see what his thought process was whenever he was going through them. So I guess it was a study. We have more Creep. Every time I see him, it shocks me, but again and again, he turns up every single sketchbook, and yet somehow before I started doing all these videos, I thought maybe I'd drawn him like 3 times, like I drew him like once a year or something. Yeah, these are some just little pro marker, fine liner, working out shapes and expressions. I really like this like really chunky style. I do think it rules. A little less so I don't really like the string bean stuff as much, but I do think I end up using these. My little stylist shape for Trouble seems sort of string bean sort of approach that, yeah, I don't super love, but I don't know what this was. I don't think I had a reference. I think I just drew this one day. I support him. I think these were some silhouettes for that thing I was speaking about earlier with my friend Shakira, the wolf thing. And this was one of the comics that I talked about redoing. So this was the Adventure Time style. So we have Creep in his little tinfoil hat and like a Finn the Human play, and then Princess Bubblegum, Trouble. And they're basically just pranking him into thinking that he's seeing a spaceship, because Sin is like in a tree holding a little fake flying saucer on a string to like our Creep, because he's really into conspiracies. He's like a massive conspiracy theorist, and they are horrible to him. It's a really horrible relationship. Trouble looks after him, but then the prank backfires because there's an actual meteor hurtling towards Earth. It's like an apocalypse thing. It's the twist. But in this one, Sin saves the day and smashes it. I even got a pun in. Time for you to meteor maker. I did it with markers. And these are my like little breakdowns of the characters and how I would turn them into my characters. An early storyboard and some little notes like super expressive and simplified, bright colors, damsel in distress / heroes, exaggerated action sequences, puns, mathematical, algebraic, and some alt puns where I'm coming at you. I'm gonna kick your asteroid. time for you to meet your maker, which obviously went with the end. So these were some more studies. This was definitely a different artist, but I don't remember who it was. Again, I should have written that in here, but it was a decade ago, so I just liked their shape language, and I wanted to try and emulate it to understand it. And then I drew some Beth from Misfits. This was the comic again, but as a children's book, and how I would change it into that by rearranging the language, that sort of thing. And some more, I think with Tom Hiddleston, cute doggy. We have some Fight Club quotes. I felt like just drawing something beautiful. And I'm Jack's broken heart. And a little Edward Norton. And a mime. I think that was one of my OCs that I've drawn a few times, but I keep redrawing the same piece of them every year to sort of see growth, I guess, or every few years. I think this was somebody else had drawn this, and I just really like the lines. This is Cecil and Welcome to Night Vale and his cat. This is Michael Fassbender. I don't know what I was doing here. I think this was Molly from BBC Sherlock, and I think I was rewriting the lyrics from one of the songs from Adventure Time, be related to her. My friend Rob drew this and this. I drew these, and it was either just in general, just because we were hanging out, or I do have a memory of us doing something like this when we were at the Supernatural convention in London while we were waiting for check-ins to open. It's just a shame that the pencil is just... This is a character from Game of Thrones, which I was really into at the time. And this was an early design for one of my first business cards, which I did finish. Hero and Charlie from Heroes, one of my favorite TV shows ever, and some of my favorite characters. And then I think this was me and Rob back in the day. I don't know what that was about though. This was another self-portrait, but it was me with a comb over and a little mustache. Yeah, and just some little character concepts and things. That could have been like a Lord of the Rings thing or something, I'm not sure. It's a sequential project. And these are just some girls. I think I just did these out of my head, so I was pretty proud of that. It's like Frankie from One Piece, maybe? Something along those lines. Some 80s. A little Frankie from One Piece. I didn't really watch it for very long, but some Hannibal sketches. This was when I was working probably on flavors for like my coffee business that I wanted to start. And then just a little doodle of Will and Hannibal because they're really cute. And some of Will's dogs because they're also really cute. And Rib and Spitty, that was Rob and mine for egos. Because he called me Bud or Spuddy because I was one of the only Irish people in England at the time, I guess. And then 10th Doctor, because we used to watch Doctor Who together. Castiel, standard. I think it's just some sketches. I think because I liked the way I drew the girls a couple of pages back, I tried to do more of that, but the anatomy failed me. And then this is Karen again, my professor. And some zombie stuff. I think this was a self-portrait, basically. I think I used myself as a reference. Yeah. And then we have Will Graham with all of his dogs. Not the best piece in the world, but it was cute. And more Will Graham, Jack, and more me and Rob, and more little doodles. I think Rob and I were just doodling next to each other. This is Rob again, silly. And that's us again. I think because our roommate, Charlie, was like really mad at us at the time because we were basically insomniacs at the time. We didn't sleep, and she took her sleep very seriously. And the walls were super thin, and she would come into the room like a storm, and so we were just like having to sit in dead silence. It was really intense. Just me as a Pokemon trainer at the time, and that was Charlie to do some venting at the time. And some hand studies. I think it's probably just my own. And Castiel and some random girl. This is, I don't know, just a guy simplifying features, probably just like and some random marker doodles and pens and things. Probably I just scribbled the markers on first and then drew over it in pens to try and pick out shapes and interesting things. These I think were some more I used, or like that's definitely. I mean, that's obviously Jim and Sebastian. And then there was Jeremy, which was an alt version of Sebastian's twin, I guess, or else either that or one of Sebastian's disguises. And Drew was, I guess, Andrew, which I think was one of the disguises that had. I don't know. A's, man. I don't even know who I was when I was a teenager, but a weirdo. This was like a sketch. I guess this was a list of all the things from Michelle's piece. So there's things here like 127 Hours, Steve Carell, Ratatouille, Inception.
2 hours later.
Food, Sherlock, I don't know. Pixar. I don't know what this is. But Charlie, my roommate, was learning Japanese, so it's probably to do with that. I don't know what it says though, so apologies if it's offensive to anybody. It was another creep, very stylized. Really, really liked it. Really, really liked it. This is 2013 now, and this is a layout for the piece for here. This is upside down, but I think it was probably Rob lounging on my bed. He had moved his PlayStation into my room so we could hang out there because it was bigger. They very graciously let me have the bigger room because I lived in another country. I had a lot of stuff. It was very nice of them. And some Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul stuff. It was probably supposed to be Aaron Paul, but I never drew him. And a gamer girl. And a dog. Yeah, just some more little concepts for that. Their world full of factions. This was part of it as well. Some more little ideas of things. Great Girl Detective and Sherlock Cat. I think this was Carly, and I don't know who these were, but it could have been connected to this. This is very intense. Another Carly to fix that, I guess, because I wanted to learn this face. If there's a fork in the road, heck it. More Jim Moriarty. I don't know what these were, but it's my brother, sort of. It's a really horrible drawing of him, but it's supposed to be my brother. It's an Adventure Time. Castiel, Jim Moriarty. Bob drew this. This is so cool. Like, I really liked his style. It was so different. He works a lot in sculpture, so I think you can see a lot of dimension. It's just a self-portrait of him and some Adventure Time stuff. There's Carlos from Welcome to Night Vale again. A little marker thing of Michael Fassbender. A movie that I'll remember later in the edit. Oh, and I've drawn like the outline on the other side, which is interesting, just to use the bleed through, I guess, to see what my lip was like. As I think this was actually supposed to be one Moran in like a really small scene in Blackbooks, but I think that was a self-portrait. Yeah, I just have some little doodles in the back with different characters from things. So yeah, that was that sketchbook. I think it's weird because I guess there was a version of it in my head that was a lot different, a lot better than actually looking through it all. There's definitely a lot of really interesting stuff in there. And there's another 2 sketchbooks to go before I catch up with myself, maybe 3. I think it's interesting to look back at stuff that you hyped up in your head as being some of your best work, but maybe realize now that you're doing your best work now, which is good. It actually makes me feel better about what I'm making now, which is a good thing, and makes me more excited for what I'll keep putting into the sketchbook that I'm working on at the moment. Yeah, thank you so much for sticking around, and I appreciate your feedback if you have any. Tell me in the comments what your favorite piece was, or tell me that they were all horrible, which is also valid. And really just thank you for sticking around this long if you did, and I hope you'll find it in your heart to like and subscribe if you like this kind of stuff. I'd love to share more of my sketchbooks with you, and hopefully I will see you in the next